There we are. Just trying to figure out where my lights were at. I totally had. Oh, I see what happened. Okay. Gotcha. Kinda. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what's going on. That is our normal state of being here at the Mad Poet Shows. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome each and every. Hello, hello, hooligans, rapscallions, scoundrels, and rogues. Mad Poet Society is in session. Thank you for being here. We are playing my 61st album today. This is called Bucket of Blood. That first album was called The Echo or The Answer. And if you're wondering just what that title means, nothing. Just like the rest of my song titles, they mean nothing. Randy and his meaningless song titles. Yes, yes indeed. I am still working on the album Thief of Time, which is intended for me to sing on. And that one will have a little bit more meaning behind it. I am getting closer and closer to doing some more vocal recordings. We'll see where things go with that. I'm still, the jury's kind of out on what's going to happen with that whole thing. So, time will tell. But if that works out the way I want it to, then I have started writing an album called Tokyo Sunrise. And it's actually, Tokyo, T-O-K-I-O, is a small town in Washington State, eastern Washington, that burned to the ground in 1998 and they didn't rebuild it. Now it's just this little teeny little, one house there and some grain elevators next to the train tracks. And I saw it out in the distance one morning when we were out hunting, and I was like, the sun was coming up. I'm like, oh, Tokyo Sunrise, that's a great name for an album. So that one will actually have a little bit of meaning behind it, but I can't find anything about the history of Tokyo, so there won't be much meaning behind it. So it'll still, like most of my stuff, be reasonably meaningless. And that is really one of the best ways to live. That's just some fine advice from your Uncle Randy. Now, one thing I've noticed in a lot of music is there are a lot of songs and albums called No Rest for the Wicked. And on this next song, I just thought, what do all you rockers have against the wicked that you don't want them to rest? So I went the opposite direction. This next song is called Rest for the Wicked. Yes. I already forget the name of that song. I do that like, oh, that's right, Rest for the Wicked. I had a big monologue about it before I got going. I always forget the names of my songs because when you have a whole bunch of them, you tend not to remember them all. That's why I also have sheet music going, because I do not know how to play all these songs off of the top of my head. But the next song is called The Long Way Home. And I think it was the first time that I played this live, my friend Susan was watching, and she just put up this comment that said, Heavy Metal James Bond. And I wasn't sure if she was referring to me and the fact that I'm playing heavy metal kind of dressed all fancy-like, or she was referring to kind of the theme of the music, which kind of has a little bit of that kind of driving kind of feel to it. Like, it can go either way. You can go either way with that. But nonetheless, it was super cool. And so, I don't know if Susan's out there watching today. She's probably busy doing grown-up stuff, which just sucks. Drink some water, everybody. But I always think of Susan when I do this one. Also, I'd like to thank, it looks like I've got a new follower on Twitch. And I don't know what your name is because it is Chinese characters, but thank you very much for following. I do not speak or read Chinese, but I love having new followers, so thank you very much. Okay, let's get rocking and take the long way home. And thank you, Sarah. For those of you who cannot hear it, Sarah's clapping from the hallway, which I always appreciate. And that was the long way home. Stephen Paris! Still great that Randy goes live for a lunchtime metal jam. Helps digest beet soup, all like a champion. Everyone give him money. You know what? I agree with all of those statements. Especially the give me money one. I am living on musician wages. I'm not trying to beg, but thank you, Stephen, for the advertisement. And thanks for coming in. It's always great to see my buddy Stephen. I've got some really witty friends. And Stephen is right in the top tier of that list. He comes up with some of the wittiest stuff, like how my music helps digest beet soup, like a champion. See, now who wouldn't want to create music that helps you digest beet soup? That goes on the resume right there, if I were the kind of person who had a resume, which I'm not. But now Stephen can sleep better knowing that if I did have a resume, he'd be in there. Boom! Lunchtime Metal Jam. Thanks for coming in, everybody. I'm having a great time, but that's because I'm playing guitar, and I like that. And I'm probably going to make a pizza today, which is not an uncommon occurrence, as any of my regular viewers will definitely be aware. All right, we're going to slow it down a little bit here. And I'm kind of feeling like this album's got a lot of really normal kind of keys and stuff in it. Metal Diva! Thanks for coming in. I haven't seen you for a while. It's great having you back. And yes, we can. So, we're going to slow it down a bit. Wouldn't say this is a slow piece. But definitely got some kind of acoustic guitars in the background here on the backing tracks. And going to get into we got some A minor, E Phrygian type stuff going on in this piece, if I recall correctly. Let's see what we come up with. Again, thanks everyone for coming in. Thanks for the new followers. This piece is called Limited Visibility. it's kind of a fun song to play. Just kind of realizing as I was fiddling through that gives kind of a good way to play with substitutions in my scales. And there's some good places where I get some B chords ring out and some C chords, and I kind of change my scale around to fit those. Explain how in the HE double hockey sticks you produce an entire album every week, week after week. Well, so first I have to point out that lately I've not been doing that. It has actually been a little over a year since I've put an album out. And this is a common question. And so I did for 11 months put out an album every week, and I have revisited that a few times since then. I may get back to an album a week at some point. Right now, I've been learning a lot about production, and I've also been working a lot on my singing. And that's been the primary holdup for Incomprehensible Isolation, which is my next album. And that album is very close to being done, but there's still just a couple of small production things that I want to learn about first before I continue to move forward. But to get to the actual question, the biggest part of my process that I found that I changed was how I wrote the instruments. And this was kind of an accident. My friend John is just a great guy. I need to get in touch with him. I haven't talked to him for a while. I was doing a set of shows out at a local coffee shop where I used to live in Western Washington. And he dared me to sing a Taylor Swift song, knowing that I am not a good singer. And I did. And I said, pick out the song. And he picked out Teardrops on My Guitar. I changed Teardrops on My Guitar a little bit because I realized that Taylor was, she was a younger lady when she wrote that song. And she didn't really have a full capacity to understand how much blood and battle imagery should be in a breakup song. So I corrected that for her in my own lyrical content. And it was beautiful. As a result of this, I needed to bring in extra equipment to be able to do that, and that kicked me off onto this series of making music in a new way. And the biggest thing I changed was that now when I write an album, I write it drums first. And that was the biggest change. The reason I do that is that the foundation of music, Stephen is an excellent musician for anyone who's not familiar with him. So he'll get this. Your drums and your percussion instruments are your absolute foundation of music, going all the way back to the most tribal origins of music. The very first instruments were almost certainly voice and percussion. And percussion may actually have even come before voice. And so recognizing the importance of the foundation, I now write an entire album just in drums, which is very interesting because I have no idea what that album is going to sound like when it gets done. And then, much like building a house, you start with the foundation, because starting with the roof is a crappy idea. I'm not in construction, but I'm willing to go ahead and say this. You don't hang the roof and then put the walls beneath it and then try to pour a foundation. So I build my foundation, and then I layer my instruments on top of that, and that change made it so that I was able to write music at a far greater pace. I don't know that method would work for everyone, and I also want to point out that at the time that I started doing that, I did have over 3.5 decades experience as a musician, a teacher, and a composer. So I had a lot of musical information available to me, and even at that, I also spent about 1.5 years working on setting that process up so that I would be able to do that. So it was a lot that went into it. It wasn't just I just turned around and started doing an album a week. Definitely a lot of process there. Were the original foundational drummers late and drunk all of the time? The thing is, there's a stereotype that drummers are always drunk and late. And I want to correct this stereotype just a little bit, because it's not wrong. It's all musicians. The other thing I did, and this is probably more important. The other thing I did to be able to create the music at the rate that I did is I fired all the other musicians I've ever worked with, and I did it on my own because I actually have the capacity to show up and do my music. And when I have a computer play my drums, it does it right. A lot of people complain that you shouldn't use drum programming. Well, then you as a drummer should show up. So basically, I realized that with the technology we have, musicians who don't show up can now be replaced by robots. And I did. That I should actually put that part first, because that's probably more important. If you want to get music done, don't rely on musicians. Use robots. And this is another one. Stephen and I have spoken about this scenario, this concept, in person many times. I should play some music. I've been sitting here yakking my brains out. This is fun though. Also, Metal Diva, thanks so much for hosting. Greatly appreciated. Anything that anyone does to get the word out that I am streaming, building up a streaming community is very interesting. It's some people it goes just really quick and they hit right away, and most of us, it's more of a grind. But there is something else I do that we're gonna do now, because, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the G sharp minor portion of the show. You are welcome. This next song is called We Have a Situation Here. And it looks like my wonky light has gone wonky again, so I'm going to go de-wonkify it. BRB. And it's just that easy. Whoop. Don't want my magic carpet to fly away incorrectly. Okay. So, we are mad poeting on along. And this next piece, as my regular viewers will know, on every album that I do, I dedicate a song to someone. And this was part of a 4-album series where we had moved over here to the middle of nowhere in eastern Washington. And so I was working on albums, and every time I do an album dedication, I will always contact the person, make sure it's okay with them if I use their name, yada yada. And I just wasn't into contacting people at the time, so I decided it was a good time to dedicate 4 songs in a row to my grandparents, who are all dead. And I didn't have to get their permission because, hey, what are you gonna do, right? I have said that my grandparents, who I was very close with, 3 of my 4 grandparents. My grandfather on my mother's side passed when I was quite young, so I never got to know him. But I was very close with the rest of my grandparents. And they would not understand my music at all. They would not get it. But I think of the 4 songs that I dedicated to my grandparents, this one would have had the best chance of hitting home with my Grandma Helen. This is dedicated to her. And we're actually going to keep going to the G sharp minor thing because it's just so much fun, and mostly because that's the key I actually wrote these songs in. And I can't just transpose them on the fly because all of this stuff has been recorded in advance. This is another excellent instrument to replace with a robot, the piano player, because I can't play piano this well. This is a slower piece. It is called The Rain is Speaking to Me. I feel like we kind of think of the way that musicians are using online streaming now, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Trovo, DLive, and all of these other websites. We kind of think of it as like this new thing. But when I play that song, I'm inexorably reminded of old Bubblehead, Lawrence Welk. My grandma Helen, to whom that song is dedicated, just religiously watched Lawrence Welk. And all Lawrence Welk was a concert on TV. We've just moved that to online. It's really not a new thing. And I actually had a student for a while. I wish I could have got a chance to play this. I had a student for a while who ended up having the guitar. He was like a nephew or something of the guitar player from Lawrence Welk. And he actually had the guitar that the guitar player from Lawrence Welk played on the show. I'm like, oh, that is a cool piece of history right there. And yeah, so very, very different type of music that Lawrence played. He kind of coined the champagne lounge genre, but not quite so much in the heavy metal vein that the Mad Poet is. But we're just more fun than him, and I have a lot less hair. So there's all of that. Nonetheless, dead grandparents. Best kind. Actually, that's probably not true, now that I think about it. All right. So we're going to move just a little ways away from G sharp minor. We're going to move into some C sharp minor action. We'll have to change one note to do that. Let's get into the C sharp minor. But we're going to pick things back up with our C sharp minor. This next piece is called Reintegrating Our Shadows. I am awesomely fun. Thank you. I like to be fun. I used to be a very angry person. And then I realized that it's just not as much fun like that. So I got over it. And now I'm just fun Randy. I do fun stuff. Whew. This is a good show. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. New followers, old followers, young followers, late followers, whatever you are. Thanks for being here. We're having a good time. I am the Mad Poet, for anyone who may be coming in. We are playing my 61st album. This album is called Bucket of Blood. And that last song was called something. I don't remember. The only reason I know the name of the next song is because it's on my monitor right now. Because when you do, I've said before, the problem with putting out, currently I have 64 albums that I've published. I have completely recorded and almost completely produced my 65th, and I have completely composed 4 other albums and partially composed an additional 4 or 5 albums. And one of the hardest things about that is coming up with almost 700 song titles. That's a big one, and I'm never going to try to memorize all of my song titles or my album titles. It's just not going to happen. Thank you, Metal Diva. Thank you. So whatever that song was, I know it was a C sharp minor. That's about how far back my memory goes. But now we're just going to kind of move a little further around the circle of fifths for you music theory buffs. We're going to drop 2 sharps off this time. We're going to get into some B minor action. We're going to keep things fairly up-paced. This song is called Directly at the Sun. directly at the sun. Yeah, just a couple things here. Get another drink of water. I'm getting thirsty here. And I'm probably gonna get thirstier because I'm going for a run when I get done. Because that's what I do. I love running. Particularly out here in Eastern Washington, I found it's a great area to run because it's just peaceful. Not a lot of traffic like when I used to live in Western Washington. Whew. Crazy traffic over there. We don't get that over here. It's very, very peaceful out running through the wheat field. Not through the wheat field, but on the roads. Because wheat fields would actually be very uncomfortable to actually run through. But this next song title is about, it's kind of weird. It's a bit of an instruction. My workout has started before my run. I do work up a bit of a sweat in these shows, that's true. I like being an active little guy, you know? A 6 foot tall, active little 6 foot guy. But, so this next song title is a bit of an instruction. And, you know, the question is, are you the kind of people who listen to instructions? Or are you the kind of people who flaunt in the face of instruction? And do your own thing, go in your own way? It's kind of up to you how you interpret this. We're gonna get into some F minor action, because I love playing in F minor for some reason. I don't know, maybe because I'm a weirdo. I hope that's why. Anyway, this is called Do Not Listen to This Song. We are moving toward the end of the show. We got two more songs for this show. And of course, I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. Adjust for your own time zone, wherever in the world you may be, or off world, or whatever you crazy people are into. So we got two songs left. This is for anyone who's just coming in, my 61st album, Bucket of Blood. I am the Mad Poet, and we're just having fun here. I do two shows every Friday. I may be adding on, I've been thinking about for quite a while, and I've had a lot of positive feedback about the idea. The only thing that's held me up is we have been on an experimental internet connection, and it is getting a lot better. It's about to move out of the beta testing, so I may start doing this very soon, where I'm going to start doing a daily stream where I just read a book, and I'm going to start with the original Sherlock Holmes series, which is all public domain, and so I can't get hit for it. And so that may be starting up, and there could be some more music streams at some point in the future, but for now, definitely Friday at noon and 8. So always feel free to tune back in, and let's move forward. Moving into song number 10 of 11 of my 61st album. This is called Obsidian Eyes. And it looks like I forgot to set my lights up to turn on in between these songs, so I'll have to do it manually. There we go. Now I gotta remember to undo it manually before I get started. So I was talking a little bit earlier in the show about how, Steven had asked about how I got to where I did such rapid fire music. And one of the things I mentioned is that I stopped working with other musicians and I relied solely on myself. And I was very, very strict about the no collaboration personal policy that I had for a long time. The first place where I relented on that was when my daughter, who is an adult, because I'm really freaking old, and unfortunately I don't think she's here today. She's out doing grown-up stuff, because sometimes you gotta do grown-up stuff. So she had asked if I would accept song title ideas. And I said, yeah, I can do that. And this was not the first song title she suggested, but it is definitely one of her better contributions. And does show the twisted nature of just how I raised my daughter. I'm a terrible person. I kind of, because of the name of the song, I kind of went, I shouldn't say that, I kind of went with, I kind of tried to go with a kind of black metal, death metal inspired kind of feel, but I'm really not a black death metal kind of person. So when I try to write, I mean, I understand the principles of the music, but it just doesn't really come out that way. So it's definitely not a black or death metal song. Though what I basically did is I started moving around in some diminished scales, which tend to create it's kind of something that's fairly common in the black/death metal realm, as it were. Nonetheless, this is the last song of the afternoon, or day, morning, night, evening, wherever you happen to be. And I'll see you on the other side. This is called The Ascension of the Angel's Carcass. And kids, that is it for the afternoon show. Thank you all so very much for coming in. Thank you for any tips that came in. Thank you for the follows. Thanks for the hosting. I had a lot of fun on this, and I will be back in about 6.5 hours after I do some running and some pizzaing and some teaching, because that is what I do. I will hopefully see you all then. I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. This has been awesome, and I am out of here.